Tensions have been rising with different fractions of the online Christian community in the past several weeks. From Father David Michael Moses catching flack from Protestants, or George Janko under fire for some of the recent comments he made on a podcast with the online Christian Avengers.
He recently made some really disturbing comments about the Eucharist, calling it effectively dirt. Yes, he called the Eucharist dirt.
George Janko, a popular YouTuber, has just created a major controversy because a video of his went viral in which he mocked the Eucharist.
To Dr. James White in a debate about the Eucharist and potentially causing doubt to the existence of an early disciple of a disciple, St. Ignatius.
There has been a tremendous amount of scholarly skepticism expressed as to whether Ignatius even existed. I hope Ignatius existed and wrote the things we have, but
in the endless debates I see in my own comment section between certain Protestants claiming that Catholics aren't Christians and Catholics claiming that Protestants may not be Christian, while the Orthodox sit back and convert more of the Andrew Tate deconstructionists. Now, fair warning, this video may be, no, it may not be. This video is a reach. May I remind you that we are on an entertainment platform called YouTube, but that doesn't mean there's not some validity to what I'm going to say in this video. The other night, I was watching The Mandalorian with my 10-year-old, and I had a bit of a aha moment. And let me preface this. I don't think The Mandalorian is a Christian show. If anything, the perspective that George Lucas presents from a spiritual reality is more of a New Age Eastern philosophy of a force that is neither good nor bad, but different people can tap into and use to their advantage. This is not congruent with historical Christianity. But natural law, or common grace if you're a Protestant, still prevails. There is still value to glean even from things that aren't overtly Christian. Now, this video will contain spoilers for Season 3, but let me just briefly summarize what the Mandalorian are. They are a group of bounty hunters, originally from the planet of Mandalore, though not all of them. We'll get into that a bit later. And they're a bit religious, some may even say a bit heterodox. And the big cultural marker that makes them Mandalorian is that they wear this special armor and they never take off their helmets.
You do not cover your face. You are not Mandalorian.
From this moment on, I shall never remove my helmet.
And have you removed your helmet since?
No, I have not. Then you may join our covert.
From a world-building perspective, some may say it's kind of a reach.
I have no problem with this at all, actually. I think it's probably the most believable part of the entire series.
Now, in this video, I'm going to briefly explain the different types of Mandalorians, a scene from Season 3, Episode 7 that I think is very relevant to what I'm seeing happening online, and a biblical takeaway that probably everyone who is a serious Protestant, Catholic, or Eastern Orthodox will not like. But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. So if you're new here, or if you're not new here, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. There's a huge percentage of the people that watch this channel are not subscribed. And this video is brought to you by our very own Bless God Summit, but more on that later. Okay, I'm gonna try to keep this very simple for you guys. There are basically two different factions within the Mandalorian TV series of Mandalorian. There's other ones in the Star Wars universe, but we're gonna keep it focused to just the two that are relevant to today's video. The first group is the Tribe. This is the group that is connected to our protagonist, Din Djarin. This group is strict, they're traditionalist, and they are very serious about adhering to the Mandalorian creed of never taking off their helmet. They prioritize preserving old ways and are led by figures like the Armorer. Then there is another group, a more modern group, the Bo-Katan group. The Bo-Katan group is also Mandalorian, but we discover that they actually do take their helmets off. They're a bit more practical and they kind of come as they are. And when these two groups have crossed paths before, specifically with the main character and Bo-Katan, there's been a lot of infighting. They haven't seen each other as true Mandalorian. This is often kind of like the no true Scotsman fallacy. Until episode 7 from season 3. They finally decide to come together so they can take back their planet of Mandalore. It's gone through all kinds of issues because of the Empire, and it's a big mess. So they decide to come back to the planet and redeem it, if you will. And as they're coming back, they discover a Night Owl group, which is a part of the Bo-Katan faction who stayed on the planet. Very small remnant. And oddly enough, they also don't wear their helmets. So now that they see this opportunity to come back to their planet, Mandalore, and redeem it, they are able to put aside their differences, that those who hold to a more strict code of never removing your helmet when other humans are around, and those who are a bit more modern are willing to put aside their differences to not have the infighting and get after the main goal. And this all culminated to this one scene that gave me this aha moment. You have the Bo-Katan, you have the tribe, and you even have the Night Owls who were already on the planet of Mandalore. The leader of the Bo-Katans gives the backstory of how they had to surrender the planet to Moff Gideon and a bunch of nasty things that happen after. And she drops this one line that oddly enough gets demonstrated in the following scene. The armorer, leader of the tribe, the traditionalist group, is having a conversation with the Night Owls, the folks that have their helmet off and remained on the island. And they ask her about Death Watch, which is another faction of Mandalorians that no longer exist. And she says the reason they no longer exist because they shattered into too many warring factions. And it is at that moment that Bo-Katan Kryze, the leader of the Bo-Katan group, says, "Our people have suffered time and again from squabbling factions. Mandalore has always been too powerful for any enemy to defeat. It has always been our own division that destroys us."
Mandalore has always been too powerful for any enemy to defeat. It is always our own division that destroys us.
Now, the hilarious part about that scene is she says that the very next day they're all on the boat. The traditionalists are playing a game with the folks who are more modern of their version of chess. And of course, it turns into a fight because the rules of the game are slightly different depending on which faction you come from. They then go underground to try and take their planet back, Mandalore, and get ambushed by Moff Gideon. And after they ambush from Moff Gideon, it's not looking good. And so what do? Well, they put aside their petty differences. They all unify together. They stand side by side and they do their best to fight their way out of the situation. Okay, so just follow me for a second. I know this is a bit of a stretch, but this is how I was thinking about this video. Listen, there are good reasons that Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox disagree. I understand, and I think we should have those conversations. However, sometimes I wonder if we, as the broader body of Christians, are losing the forest for the trees in terms of arguing over what denomination is right and all these sorts of things. Perhaps the only thing that is defeating us is our own disunity, is that have different factions of folks that are more traditionalists and others who are more modern. We're seeing the same thing displayed amongst the Christian YouTube community online. Now, I want the record to show that I have friends in all streams of Christianity that are reasonable, and we disagree. We disagree passionately, but we're always charitable. We're always doing our best to listen to each other, to understand each other's perspective, to make sure that we're ultimately displaying the fruit of the Spirit as we see in Galatians. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a large part of the online community that loves to pile on, loves to have gotcha moments and show how the other side is dumb and illogical. And my question simply becomes don't we have bigger fish to fry? Now, before my high church brothers and sisters flood the comment section like stormtroopers and say, "What are you saying, Ruslan? There is no standard, there is no right or wrong, or anyone that claims to be a Mandalorian. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. There are two factions in this episode. There's actually a faction that died off because of all the infighting. But there is a character that appears like a Mandalorian, but isn't a Mandalorian. And that character's name is Boba Fett. Boba Fett actually wears Mandalorian armor and appears like a Mandalorian, but is not a Mandalorian. The armor was passed down from his dad. So you can figure out how that fits into this story for yourselves. But I want to draw that distinction nice and clear. And just know that despite our disagreements and despite some people believing that we as Protestants may not have a valid communion, my heart is to do my best to bring people together of different Christian streams. This is exactly what we're doing at the Blessed God Summit by having folks not just who are a part of different denominations, but we have Catholics represented by my friend Lila Rose. And outside of Lila Rose, there's another person who's Catholic that will also be there. But you should get your ticket to find out by going to blessedgodsummit.com to get your virtual or in-person ticket. And ultimately, this entire thing makes me think of this passage. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Now, I think it's pretty interesting that the Mandalorians are known for their special armor. But it is this next passage that I find really interesting. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. And then Paul goes on to explain to them to put on the full armor of God. I also think about this passage from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, where Paul is also writing, and he says, just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit, so as to form one body, whether Jews or Gentiles, slaves or free, and we were all given the one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. And to illustrate this point, let me give you guys a quote from Martin Luther himself. He said, in Luther's Works, volume 40, Concordia, page 32, he said, in the papacy, there is true Christianity, even the right kind of Christianity, and so many great and devoted saints. The Christendom that is now under the papacy is truly the body of Christ and a member of it. Now, I'll concede that perhaps me, as a Protestant that loves my Catholics and Orthodox brothers and sisters, is being a bit idealistic in this entire situation. This is perhaps me saying, can't we all just get along? Because at the end of the day, I honestly believe that we have bigger fish to fry. I believe that there are times to disagree and disagree passionately and have good faith conversations, but there's more important matters out there that are causing harm and leading people to be disillusioned with the faith. One of the terms that sometimes we as parents hear is the idea of divide and conquer, but we use that phrase wrong. Divide and conquer was actually a war term used to divide and conquer an army so that you can get them when they're not looking and perhaps when they're disjointed. And I would hate for that to happen in terms of everything that the Lord seems to be doing across all the streams of Christianity. And if you want to see a video where we do another breakdown of a popular movie about how an atheist proves that the Matrix is truly about Jesus, you can check this out over here. Or you could check out our Bless God Summit and more information about that over here. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.